Hello, and welcome to another episode of the SOAR podcast. And today I am excited to have a special guest with me, and this is Ayanna Lott-Pollard. And I just wanted to say, welcome to SOAR, Ayanna.
Thank you, Dr. Stephanie. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited to speak with you as well as the SOAR family.
Yes, and we're excited to hear everything that you have to say because this is a hot topic that we're going to be discussing. Our topic is, will robots replace us? How our youth can take advantage of the tech explosion. And I consider myself to still be a part of the youth. So, youth is a term that you can interpret any way that you want to interpret it. But as usual, I always like to start off the show by just introducing my guests by getting a chance to read their bio. So, for those of you who are not familiar, Ayanna Lott-Pollard is the executive director of the nonprofit Resilient Coders. Ayanna is a creative strategist with more than 20 years of experience in marketing and operations. She is a transformational leader who uses influence to inspire and develop teams while serving as a collaborative force and a connector of dots to business initiatives and a coach to emerging leaders who need to understand their significance and develop a leadership framework for their careers. Ayanna has a bachelor's degree in journalism from Temple University and her MBA from the University of Phoenix. She received her certification as an executive leadership coach from the Harvard Extension Business School and advanced coaching certification from the Columbia University Teaching College. Ayanna resides in her hometown of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and she's married to her best friend, Gregory, and has a fur baby named Leo. So wonderful, wonderful. So, Philly, you're right up the road from me here in Maryland. So, I feel like we're neighbors.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, I always like to start off these interviews by asking you to share your story. I believe that that's what we're here for because one of the ways that I think that we can build community, we can build sisterhood is by sharing our stories and finding out how much we have in common and how connected we truly are. Um, and to practice sharing our narrative because I think we have some pretty amazing stories to tell. So, what's your story?
So my story is rather complex, but I will drill it down for the sake of time. I started my career just thinking about being a journalist. I wanted to be a broadcast journalist, and my career's been nonlinear, like many of many people who are listening to this podcast right now. I started out thinking I'd work um, for a television station and I'd be on the nightly broadcast. And as I began to matriculate through college, I found that I was interested in other areas. For
Mhm.
instance, I had the opportunity to take an internship at the White House, which now we call it a fellowship. And in doing that, I just knew that I wanted to be a White House spokesperson, and I had the opportunity to work in the upper press office. And from that experience, I understood maybe politics isn't for me. And so I quickly navigated out of that field and moved over into advertising, which was a wonderful opportunity for me to just gain skills in developing strategic plans for organizations. So I graduated college, went straight into advertising. It was like a 16-hour work day.
Mm,
And it was great that I had the opportunity to use those broadcasting skills that I love so much. I had an opportunity to write, I had an opportunity to produce, and I was able to be at the table and develop those strategic plans and those marketing plans for organizations across various sectors. So if it was McDonald's, I had an opportunity to do a commercial. If it was health partners, we were working on a strategic plan to launch a particular product in a different segment of the industry. So I just had an opportunity to quickly switch hats, which gave
mm,
me a lens to say, hey, I can do this. I can I can quickly navigate, I can quickly um, put on different hats and quickly be able to say, this is what you need. This is our recommendation. And so it was a very powerful opportunity for me, which led me into various sectors of my career. I've worked in healthcare. I've worked in wellness. I've worked for the American Cancer Society. I've been able to serve as a leader with the Salvation Army. But one of the things that is a reoccurring theme for me is I often find myself working in spaces where my passions, where I have strong passion, where I feel that I'm able to um, mirror the skills that I have in the core values of the organization, and couple that with my core values. So, like so many people, I haven't had that linear career where I could say, "Hey, I started here. This is where I said I would be." In 20 years, it's been a unique pathway for me to just say, "Hey, is this what I want to do right now? Is this where my passions are? Does this feed me? Does this drain me? Do I wanted to do this, but now I'm doing it, and I understand that this is taking all the life out of me to get out of bed every day. So let's quickly navigate and change to do something where I don't feel like I need a fifth of liquor to get out the car to go and work." So
I hear you. I find it very refreshing to hear how you describe your path and your story. And I'm sure this, as a fellow coach, those questions about is this feeding me or is this draining me are so important because sometimes, we have the best intentions and the best laid plans. And we get there and we're like, yeah, this ain't it. And too many times I think we stay on that path because we feel like we've invested too much or we don't want to be a quitter or we don't
mhm.
want to disappoint other people when it really is our choice. We can give ourselves permission to make a different choice. So just with even telling your story, you've already given us some nuggets there. Now I really just want to kind
Yeah,
of
I
cut.
think it's so important what you just said, and of
You're frozen a little bit.
the rest
Let's
of our
see.
lives.
Ayana, you froze for just a minute. Can you repeat the last
Let
thing
me
you just
see.
said?
Yes, I said it's so important that as women working in industry, we understand that we have freedom and that we don't have to be tethered to one career for our entire lives. Like, when I was younger growing up, I remember my dad worked for the city, and he was, I worked for the city. I got my 10 years in, I got 20 more years to go. And so it was like that was
Hmm.
his career. He knew he was going to stay with the city for his 30 plus years and then he would retire. Thankfully, our parents made those sacrifices so we don't have to. And so we
Yes.
can, navigate and make those changes based on our circumstances, based on our needs, and based on our self awareness.
Hmm. You sum that up very nicely, and thank you for reiterating that point because that's so important. And it really lends itself to the topic that we're getting ready to talk about. I mean, the name of your organization is Resilient, and I think that the thing that you just said is kind of a definition of being resilient, being able to pivot, being able to navigate, being able to see new opportunities where you may not have seen it before. And I wanted to cut straight to the chase and get into the topic of the hour because this is like I said in the intro, this is a really important topic that's on everybody's mind. And that topic is, are we going to be replaced by robots? AI has hit and it has
Mhm.
hit big and it's making ripples through every, I think, business and industry. They're trying to figure out how are they going to grapple with this new technology. And there's this huge frenzy. So I'm just going to lay that out. I know that it's a really big question, but do you think robots are going to replace us?
So when I hear this question, it makes me laugh. I think about movies like RoboCop or the Terminator, movies I grew up watching, and seeing these robots develop these personalities and take over the world. And AI, although AI has been around for a long, long time now, we can go back 10 years, but now that it's become a more of a cultural phenomena, or we're hearing about it more, we're able to use Chat GPT, the fourth iteration of that. It is a question. And I think the question is, are robots going to replace us, or will robots replace our jobs? So I love data. So I went and found some
Hmm.
data. And according to the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report of 2020, 85 million jobs will be displaced by the shift of labor between humans and machines. So these are these are jobs that are not, as we call, automation resistant. However, 85 million jobs will be displaced. 97 million new roles will emerge. So when we look at that, we think about, there are a certain sector of people, primarily African Americans, Latinx folks, who are in those automative jobs. You say, Ayanna, what are you talking about when you say automation resistance or automation? I'm talking about jobs where they can be replaced by a computer or a robot or a machine. When we think about data entry clerks, folks, to give you a beautiful example, and this drives me crazy, but when I go to the grocery store and I have to check myself out, and we all do it. That was somebody's job, Dr. Stephanie. Somebody had
Hmm.
used to scan us out. They used to get a paycheck for that. But now in Philadelphia, I don't know how it is in Maryland, I have to bring my own bags. I have to scan myself out. If I don't have bags, I have to pay for a bag. I have to put it in the cart and have to take it to, we scan ourselves out or we order at home, however you order. But that's an example of a job that wasn't an automation resistant job. And so when we look at that, we say, oh, now you think about folks who drive trucks. Those jobs are being folks who are doing a lot of data entry. A lot of those jobs have been replaced by computers or APIs or systems that you just plug the information in one time, and it keeps divulging
Yeah.
that information for you. Now, to juxtapose that, there are so many jobs and opportunities that are opening up in technology. Data analysts, coders, AI, machine learning specialists, big data specialists, data marketing and strategy specialists. There's so many other opportunities that are opening up. And the beautiful thing about these opportunities is that they're allowing folks to get paid at a higher level. So, what you would get paid as a cashier, we're fighting for, well, we want them to be able to make minimum wage. But
Hmm.
when you start to walk over into tech, those are high growth careers that you can start and enter the marketplace making a lot more money than you would in those other jobs that will one day, someday soon, not exist.
Let me just chime in here for a second because you're painting a very rosy picture and it's exciting, but don't you have to be smart to be in tech? I mean, I know I feel like I am fairly proficient at computers, but earlier this year, I sort of got a lesson at how I was not as proficient as I thought I was and kind of went into a tech-filled space with people who have been doing tech since they were born and kind of got my stuff handed to me because I really was not as proficient as I thought I was. So if I've been a cashier for, 20 years, I mean, is it really realistic for me to move into the tech space?
You bring up a very fascinating point, and I think it's the reason why I love my work. And we're kind of tiptoeing over into another area of equity. Um, and
Mhm,
it really brings out the fact that what you just said just brings up so many thoughts and feelings that I need to like take a minute to think it through. But
thank you.
you do have to be intelligent to be in, to do those jobs that I just named, those tech jobs. But when we think about our children, you think about a 3-year old. I think about my little niece. She'll just pick my phone up. I never taught her, never gave her a tutorial. She'll just pick it up, she'll swipe it. She knows what to do. Our kids, they have they're more inclined to just jump on tech. And and
Mhm,
and to be able to do things and navigate things and fix things. You can just give your young adult a phone and say, "Hey, fix this," and they know how to do it. They're more inclined. As we get older, yes, we'll have to immerse ourselves in learn, but that doesn't mean we can't learn. It just means that we have to be patient with ourselves and give
mm,
ourselves the opportunity to learn. But in the same way you learned how to use that cell phone is the same way that you'll be able to learn how to switch the code or upskill in some other way. Are
mhm.
very we're very talented people, we're very gifted people, and we just have to give ourselves a chance to learn it and to be patient enough to not put it down and say, listen, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for this. We can and we will when we have to. We just have to be patient with ourselves. But the younger generations, thankfully, they're more inclined to just jump in and get it. And
Yeah.
when I bring up the point about equity, it goes back to them having access to computers at school, having
Mhm.
access to computers and the internet at home, having access to these things so that they can become acclimated to it and use it and learn it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I like what you said about being patient with ourselves. And I think sometimes we are very impatient with ourselves and we expect to be able to know how to do something. Like I know I expect that of myself. I expect to be able to know how to do a TikTok or whatever and make it look the way I want to look. And then when I can't quite do it, I do get a little bit frustrated. So I'm going to take that lesson to be more patient with myself. So I think this is a perfect segue to just talk about what is Resilient Coders. Um, I understand it's a nonprofit organization, but tell me what it is, because I'm sure Resilient Coders has some solutions for us in this tech space.
Yes. So Resilient Coders is a free 20-week boot camp. We teach general object oriented programming principles. The languages are JavaScript, React, Node, HTML, CSS, and MongoDB. And so over the course of the 20 weeks, the students receive a biweekly stipend, and we're after young adults 18 to 30 years old who come from low income communities. We're in Boston as well as Philadelphia. And so, as our students matriculate through the program, we're working with them on their soft skills, we're working with them on their professional skills, we should say, helping them develop their personal brand on LinkedIn, as well as Twitter and Instagram, helping them to be able to shape and tell their story, as well as presenting them with opportunities to partner with organizations that are hiring entry level software engineers. And so once the students complete the program, they have to go through a mock behavioral interview, a mock technical interview, and then they have a capstone project, which we call their demo day project, where they're able to show off a full stack web application that they created over the course of the program. The beautiful thing about Resilient Coders is that you don't have to have a degree. It's just all skills based, and the average salary of our graduates is $94,000 a year. So it's a high growth opportunity that allows folks who don't have a necessarily have a degree to get to have a high growth, high wage employment.
That's amazing. How long has it been in existence? When was it founded?
2014. The organization was founded by David Del Marcintiez. He was working at the time at PayPal and looked around and saw that he was the only person of Latino descent who was in the room. And so said, I can do this work. I've been able to teach myself how to do this work. How can we teach other folks from Black and Brown communities to do this work so that they too can lay hold of these opportunities? So our mission is to build economic resiliency in Black and Brown communities by providing access to software engineering opportunities through training, through placement, and support of these young adults.
That is awesome. I can understand why you're so passionate about this. And you're an expert in equity access and to the tech economy. I know that's one of the things you're an expert in. And so clearly Resilient Coders is doing its part in trying to create some equity access. Let's take a step back and just define what equity access is. And then tell me more about what the rest of us can be doing or what other opportunities there are to provide equity access to the tech space.
So technology is ubiquitous. Like we talk about our phones and how there are walking computer, there are handheld computers. And I mentioned this earlier when I think about digital equity. Digital equity is just, let me go back for a second. Technology is one of those industries where innovation, creativity, it's a must. And so when you think about technology and opportunities that it provides, and you think about companies like Google, you think about companies like Microsoft, you think about Amazon, you think about those organizations like Oracle that impact our day-to-day lives. And the opportunities within those organizations allow those employees to have access to great careers and to great
Mhm.
salaries. And so when you think about that and you say, wow, who works in tech? Who are the folks that you look in tech? Well, it's 80% white, okay? And so although we've been talking about like increasing the diversity in tech and increasing the pathway for folks who are not white to work in tech, the numbers are still minuscule. There's still 3%. 3% of the folks who work in tech are African American or of Latinx descent. And so when we think about equity, equity means that the people who are not necessary, the people who are not dominating, they have an opportunity to lay hold of those opportunities as well. And so, and
Mhm.
it's important one, but it closes because we need to have around the table who creating these technologies who look like us to help us to decrease and delete by industry. So when we think about digital equity, we think about or tech equity, we think about providing opportunities regarding our family background or income that folks lack and can have a seat at the table, gain access to these opportunities, and lay hold of these high wage careers to upskill and to upskill what they currently have and to be able to create generational wealth and change the landscape, the economic landscape of a generation.
Yeah, I mean, when you start talking about equity, the tech masters didn't want what you were saying to be heard. You kept going in and out. But it's true. When we talk about these things, when we talk about equity and we talk about making things fair, there's always going to be some resistance. There are always going to be um, people who like things just the way they are. And so, in addition to getting the youth these opportunities, we have to give them that resilience to know to keep going and to keep pushing past any resistance
Mhm.
that they might encounter. So I love those two things together, the resilient coders. And it is so important. So what I'm hearing you say about equity access to the tech economy is that by providing people in underserved communities with the skills for coding, for software engineering, for all of those tech-based skills, then that can get them into these companies. That's the access, get them into Google and Microsoft and Oracle, where they have access to a high paying wage and they can make good money and create generational wealth. And is that the sum of it, or are there any other aspects to equity access to the tech economy?
They're different. There are many different perspectives, but for me, I think if you ask me why I do this work, it's for that very purpose. It's so that the children who look like you and me have opportunities that they can um, create opportunities for their families. They can buy
Mhm.
homes. They can save money. They can have more than $500 in the bank for an emergency. We want to see the next generation take claim and take their space um, and their
Mhm.
place in this industry.
I love that. How do we prepare the youth? So those of us who have youth in our lives, whether they're our children, our nieces and nephews in our church communities, who are elementary school, middle school, high school, college age, how do we prepare the youth to be able to, like you said, take their place in this new evolving tech space?
It starts with conversation. It starts with allowing our exposure as well,
Mhm.
exposing our kids to technology. There are camps, in Philadelphia. There's a program called Coding for Kids, and they have an opportunity to learn how to code at a very young age. Programs that will allow them to see, like, hey, I can do this. I know a lot of schools now have like a robotics team, allowing our kids to be or encouraging our children to be part of a robotics team where they can learn these skills early. And so it's not foreign to them, where they can have conversations and say, hey, I developed this, or I built this, or hey, look what I can do on my phone through an app. Just providing them with opportunities to be able to say, this is something that's an option for me. May not be what I want to do down the road, but at least it's an option and it's something I know how to do and I can speak intelligently to it.
Mhm. Yeah, I like that, just exposing them and having it be an option. The only in medical school, they used to tell us the only diagnosis you'll miss, that you'll definitely miss is the one you never considered, right? So having a broad differential diagnosis, thinking it could be all of these different things, then whatever it is in the midst. But if you have a very narrow differential diagnosis, you only know two things that it could be, then you're likely to miss it. So having those opportunities, having it be an option that they can choose from. So for many, generations, especially for I know in the African American community, education has been the thing that was going to equalize opportunity for us. It was something
Hmm.
that was pushed on us, which has been good and it has given us a lot more opportunities, but it has not quite gotten rid of, systemic racism or oppression. So it has not quite even the playing field. One of the things you talk about is skills over degrees. Do you think that having these skills is more important than having an educational degree?
I think it depends on who you ask. In both respects, we need skills to be able to do the work, whether you have a degree or not. If I'm going to be Dr. Stephanie, if I'm going to go to medical school, that's not something I can upskill. I need to go through the path if I want to be an obstetrician or a pediatrician or a cardiologist, whatever, or a lawyer. It depends, but um, it, it if you're choosing a career path where you're able to teach yourself, such as in some spaces, or be taught like in technology, you offer yourself other opportunities. And I answer this way because I come from a background, and I know I feel like I need to be careful because I come from a background where my mom, the whole thing for me from the time I could walk before I could talk, it was, you're going to college. You're going to college. You're going to get an education. You're going to learn. You're going to, you're going to do better than I did. Mother had great dreams for her children. And so many of our parents age for our lives. And now we think about it, in 2000, $2 2020, $1.7 trillion in debt. So the average person has $32,000 in student debt. And that means that they're not able to, there's very little disposable income. They're not buying homes. They may still be living with their parents. They're foregoing family planning. And so now as adults, we're able to provide our children with alternative solutions. So they can say, perhaps I don't want to go into debt from college. What else can I do? A trade school, a boot camp, those are options for our children who don't have a 503B, or they don't have access to scholarships. They don't have money in the bank, or parents that can say, hey, I got your career, I got your, tuition covered. They should have access to a high growth career as well. So that's where those alternative talent pathways come into play, and have been extremely helpful and advantageous for the generation to be able to say, hey, I didn't get to go to college, but I still have an opportunity for a high growth, high paying opportunity.
Mm, awesome. I absolutely love that. There are so many paths to success, and they don't all go through a university um, and a cap and gown. There are other opportunities for success in life, and you get to kind of determine what your definition of success is. So I love having opportunities everywhere. And, like you said, there's going to be 97 million jobs created in this tech sector. And those are going to be some really high paying jobs. So that's great for the youth to have lots of choices. I know one of the other areas that you're really passionate about is social justice through economic empowerment. So when you are able to, empower the individual by having them go through the program of resilient coders, then they get a great job at Google or Microsoft, and they're able to take care of themselves and their family. How does that translate to social justice? Or just tell me a little bit about your passion for social justice.
So this became even more prominent and relevant to me as we've navigated through the past 3 years with George, the death or the murder of George Floyd, and thinking about how I could be part of the solution. And so when I think about social justice through economic empowerment, social justice is folks who have been underrepresented, marginalized in our society, being able to have equal access to opportunities that will level the playing field and allow them to get out of a hole. I'll just keep it simple like that. To just get out of a hole. And so when I think about social justice, I think about, people the folks out there who are marching, the folks out there who are protesting, they're signing petitions, their Twitter, they're on Twitter, and they have their slacktivism, and they're just tweeting, and I'm get it out. But for me, social justice looked more like, how are we going to get our young people employed? How are we going to
Mm,
make sure they're okay? How are we going to make sure that they can pay their bills on time, that they can buy a home, that they have an option to have a 401k and plan for the future, raise their children, and if they opt to put them in private schools? Social justice looks like creating opportunities for a generation that will outlast them. It will outlast
mm,
them. So economic empowerment is being able to say, hey, you can do this, these are skills that we can teach you so that you can lay hold of these high growth opportunities, so that you can lay hold of this American dream that you've heard about, or that we've heard about, our whole lives. But being able to say, this opportunity includes you. There's a way for you also to succeed in life, and whatever that success looks like, that's economic empowerment to me. So
Okay.
however people show up and whatever their activism looks like, I feel that that activism should also include providing pathways for folks who are from underrepresented communities to be able to have a seat at the table, and if not have a seat at the table, to create their own tables.
Amen. There's nothing that I have to add to that. That was very well said, and I agree. Um, what else, as we kind of wrap up the interview, what else do you want the world to know about tech and our youth? Or even about, we haven't really gotten into, those of us who aren't as young, but what do we all need to know about tech and where the opportunities lie for us?
I'll just use, because of time, and I know we're running low. I have three words I can say. One would be upskill. Upskill wherever you are in
Mhm.
your career, wherever you are in the trajectory of your career. Upskill and lean in. A lot of times we will say, oh, oh no, I'm not dealing with that AI. Oh no, I don't want anything to do with that technology. That's
Mhm.
not for me. That's for the younger kids. Oh no, I don't deal with that social media. We will resist it because it can be a little complex in our understanding. Sometimes we'll have to go back, and we talked about that earlier. We have to learn, and we have to relearn how to learn, and how do we learn, and how do I grasp this. We have to be patient with ourselves. We have to engage other folks to help us. Lean in. It's not time for us to
Mhm.
just say no, ignore this, because it's not going away. AI is not going away. It's here. It's now. It's the future. It's the present. Lean in. How can you find your competitive advantage in this space? In whatever
Mhm.
industry you work in, what is your competitive advantage? What can you teach yourself, or how can you teach others how to use it, and leverage that to build your family, to build your community, to build your career.
Mhm. Yeah, I was just listening to a podcast that said that very thing about people, entrepreneurs, and how, copywriters, as an entrepreneur who does a lot of marketing, there's always copywriting. You're always writing things. And how copywriters, can either get nervous about the fact that, AI, Chat GPT can write these blogs faster than you can, or they can lean into it and start to use it to make their work go faster so that they become more efficient. And then they do the things that only they can do. So I think that's a question for all of us. What are the things that you uniquely can do, and what are the things that AI might be better suited to do? And figure that out now and start to um, utilize it as a part of your career or your business. So, one of the questions I ask to all of my guests, because this is the Sisters Overcoming and Rising podcast, is what are some of the limiting beliefs that you had to overcome in order to get to where you are today?
I love that question. I think for me, it will really be applicable to this space, in the word soar, because at some time, or at some point in my life and in my career, I found myself waiting for the sponsorship or the championship of others around me, for them to look at me and see
Mhm.
my value and to say, hey, Ayana, you can do this. Or, hey, Ayana, how about we recommend you for this? And I was waiting for that. And one of the things that I've learned is that if you don't have a vision for your life, folks will always find something for you to do. And nine times out
Mhm.
of 10, it will benefit them. So my limiting belief was removing, to stop waiting for the approbation of others, or the praise, or the endorsement of others, and to say, hey, if I feel I can do this, if I have the skills, walk through the door, walk through boldly. You might trip, you might fall, get up, dust yourself off, and keep on going. Like, if you believe you can, you can. Stop waiting for other people to believe in you.
I absolutely love that one. And yes, stop waiting for other people to validate you, validate yourself. Is how I usually say that. Um, so how can we reach you or follow you, or if we know someone who we think would be perfect for resilient coders? And then if you have anything exciting coming up, like, a program or book or show, please share that with us as well.
Sure. So I'm really excited. We have our next cohort is we're recruiting now. It will begin in August. So for anyone, if you have a young person in your life, a young adult that you know they're intelligent, they can't seem to figure out what they want to do, but they have a bend towards technology. Resilientcoders.org. We would love for them to apply to the program, and we would love to meet them. We can also follow us on Instagram or Twitter at Resilient Coders. And if you'd like to follow me or get to know me a little more, I am on Instagram, but I'm also on LinkedIn, and Ayanna Lott-Pollard. And you can also check out my website, ayannalott.com.
Thank you, Ayanna. This was a wonderful, wonderful interview. I really got into this topic and what we're talking about because I think it applies to all of us, but definitely applies to our youth. And I love your passion. It's infectious.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for spending this time with us, and I look forward to continuing to be connected.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.